Om Satyena Labhyastapasa Hyesa Atma Samyagyanena Brahmacharyena Nityam Antaha Sarirehi Jyotirmayo Hi Shubhraha Yam Pashanti Yatayaha Kshinadoshaha Om Shantihi Shantihi Shantihi. The Atman, the indivisible self in all beings and in all things, is realized by knowledge, by continence, by austerity, and by constancy. All of these constantly cultivated. When mental impurities dissolve due to this practice, then the seer beholds it everywhere, existing in everything, even here, in this very world and body. Om, peace, peace, peace. And there shines Brahman. May that Brahman protect us. May that Brahman sustain us. And may that Brahman illumine our thinking consciousness. May we not find fault with each other, with the world, and with the teachings. And may what we study be a source of inspiration to us eternally. Om, peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us, and may peace be unto all. Om, Hari Om, Hari Om, Hari Om Tat Sat. Aloha from Hawaii. Namaste from Mother India as we meet with our small SRV contingent here on the Big Island, and many of you looking on from United States and Europe and India into our little classroom here, where we're involved in the second class in a series of 3 classes on the importance of constancy or perseverance. It's an easier hold, an easier topic to get than the ones we've been studying over the last months, which have been going very deep into the philosophical profundities of Mother India. Nonetheless, we have an hour of focused attention here on a very important subject that has been enjoined upon us by great souls like Patanjali, the father of yoga. He says that the spiritual practice must be maintained and for a very long time in the atmosphere of perseverance and faith and devotion. Abhyasa yoga, he calls it. In the Gita, Krishna calls it also Abhyasa yoga. It's yoga of constant practice, and it's supposed to be married or conjoined with detachment. We know in Vedanta, which is the umbrella we're learning under, the darshana we're existing in right now, brought to us by Swami Vivekananda. In Vedanta, we know this as an important element of constancy called the Viveka and Vairagya. So the 2 V's, which are the 2 D's, we say, just detachment and discrimination. So all of these are enjoined upon us by the great rishis of India, and they bring us into one-pointed focus on our spiritual practice, as I said, to be maintained over a long period of time. Lord Vashishta also talks about that to Sri Ramchandra in the great scripture Yoga Vashishta. I brought a chart about Yoga Vashishta that we may look at next week. But this week, we're picking up from last Sunday from some teachings of the Holy Mother, Sri Sharada Devi, Sri Ramakrishna's spiritual consort and wife. And remember, if you think back, we looked at the chart on the 5 P's, one of those being perseverance. She gave us various hints as to how to keep practice going. There's an ancient teaching in India about the three great boons. The first boon is a human birth. The second boon is a good teacher. That's a spiritual teacher, of course. And the third boon is desire to be free. Mumukshutvam, it's called in Sanskrit. Desire to be free or liberated. We'll look at that a little bit today with the Father of Yoga's take on it. But Holy Mother took those three and said about the people that she was ushering into spiritual life by the hundreds and thousands in India when she was living up until the early 1920s. She said that she'd seen people who had all three boons in India. They had a human birth, of course, and then they had a good teacher, either her or a guru in India that was helping them. And then they had a desire to be free. Many of them were talking about freedom. But she said she saw that even though they had the three great boons, she never saw them get enlightened in that lifetime. And that was because they didn't have the friendship of their own mind. So she added a fourth boon to this ancient Triputi teaching in India that's been there from time out of mind, again, all the way back to Lord Vashishta's time and the avatar Ramchandra. This is a very powerful teaching that we were looking at last week when she talked about the 5 Ps. And then we also looked at a chart where she was talking about the 3 main ingredients to enlightenment. Do you remember what they are? One of them is, of course, time, kala. I was reading the Srimad Devi Bhagavatam, the great mother scripture, all week, because I have to teach it in a retreat in 2 weeks. So I was reading in there and talking about how kala, or time, is such an important facet of the devotee's life. Not to get caught in cycles of time, of course, like Lord Buddha said, but nonetheless to be aware of the passage of time in cosmic cycles. So that was one of the factors. And she also talked about this practice, sadhana. And that was how we brought ourselves to the end of last class, by looking at the bucket list, we called it, of practice that was on that chart, where she has us look deeply into our past lifetimes even, and into our relationship to our ancestors, the Pitris, and other facets of spiritual life, recollection of our past lifetimes and so forth. So she was taking us very deep into that. And just as we ran out of time last week, that's when we came to this chart that I want to finish up this week, and has to do with this important facet of transmigration. And that's the interesting title you see there. The mind's fascination with samsaric transmigration. We gave a seminar on that, and this was the main chart of it some years ago, a couple years ago. And I put that quote up there, Vivekananda: "It drags from birth to death, and death to birth the soul." Oh, it's one of the higher methods, particularly in Advaita Vedanta, of non-duality, they call it, that this transmigratory process, which Lord Buddha was so effective at pointing out when he lived about 550 years prior to Jesus. He was pointing out the fact that this ancestor loop, or what he called the Kala Chakra, the wheel of time, was bringing people back in again and again, and dragging from birth to death and death to birth to soul, as Vivekananda puts it here. So it reminded us of the teachings of the Advaita. So I won't sing. Last week I sung the verses. This time I'll just read them out to you in English. He says, "Contemplating the dreamlike past, I found that I never owned a mental complex with which to create pleasure and pain. The onerous phantom of the ego then dissolved, and the creeper of birth and death fell off my true body. The happiness and sorrow that attends upon life, I found does not belong to me, and suffering is a work of tamas, not myself, because I am pure existence wisdom and bliss, as boundless as the sky, infinite like space. So that's out of 3 slokas, actually, out of the Advaita Gita, chapter 4, the first 40 slokas in that great scripture. That's called a revealed scripture, Advaita Gita. And that, along with the Ashtavakra Samhita, are 2 of the most direct avenues we know into transcendence or Advaita Vedanta. So that's where we left off last week, although we did point out this beautiful image that was here of the old man passing away, a death greeting him, running him through into the mother of nature. She gives birth again to the baby in nature, and then the boy grows up and so forth. Kaste Kanta Haste Putra. You know the sloka, Bhaja Govindam. I can sing it for you later. So when I was a baby, I was attached to my mother's breast. When I was a young boy, I was attached to sports. When I was a young man, I was attached to a young woman. And when I was a middle-aged man, I was attached to work. When I was an old man, I was attached to anxiety because death was coming. And cycles of rebirth, unbeknownst to most souls, are coming as well. But he ends up the sloka saying, alas, to the Supreme Brahman, I was never attached. So all through life, this transmigratory process, he looked back, like Bhartrihari did. He wrote 3 different shatakams, Bhartrihari. And the first one was about the world and how he got tired of it. The second one's about the world of women and how he got disillusioned by it. And the third was about renunciation. It's called the Vairagya Shatakam, 100 verses on the beauty of renunciation. So these are souls that were working through this Kala Chakra, this wheel of birth and death, and got tired of the soul being dragged from birth to death, and then found their way to this beautiful non-dual truth and became attached finally to that Supreme Brahman. Alas, to the Supreme Brahman, I was never attached. So that's why this image with all the animals, of course, are there in nature, and mankind sometimes consider himself an animal. That's what you're being taught by science, evolution, and so forth, which is all nonsense. You are always the Atman. You'll never be anything but the Atman. And you always were the Atman. That is pure conscious awareness, like he's saying here. I am existence, knowledge, and bliss absolute, as boundless as the sky, infinite like space. So sky is air, space is ether. So he's using 2 of the 5 elements, 2 of the 5 great elements, as analogies to try to explain to us what it's like to be the Atman, to realize you're the Atman. What I just chanted, Om Satchena Labhyastapasa Hesa Atma. Shankara says the same. He's Om Mano Buddhya Hamkara Chittani Naham. I'm not manas, the mind. I'm not its thoughts, chitta. I'm not ahamkara, the ego, and I'm not the intellect, the buddhi. I'm Chidananda Shivoham. Shivoham, Shivoham. He said, I am Shiva, I am Lord Shiva. I'm transcendent of time, space, name, form, and causality. So Vivekananda says it nicely here. You're never in Maya. It's Maya that's in you. So get rid of it. Rise up and out of it. Be free, because that's your true nature, is always ever free and never bound. So why is it then, if we plunge into this subject on constancy, that people find a human birth, they find a good teacher, and they actually in their youth have a desire to be free and then lose that? Father of Vedanta, is Vedavyas. Father of yoga is Patanjali. Both of these souls said there are 5 kinds of minds. 3 of them never get enlightened. That is 5 kinds of practicing minds. That's not talking about ignorant people, the masses. They never get enlightened. They go from birth to death and birth to death for hundreds and thousands of lifetimes, over hundreds and thousands of ages. You see, that's what looking at kala or time does to you. India looked at time through the eyes of the great rishis and found out that it was illusory, number one. Found out, number two, that it was a long dream that never ended. No beginning, middle, and end to it. So there's just cycles, and the cycles give the soul the delusion of thinking that it's being born, it's living, and it's dying. But that's being dragged from birth to death and death to birth, isn't it? The soul's the witness of all that. They call that Sakshi Bhuta, the witness of all phenomena. It's transcendent, it's free, it's ever pure, never bound, and it's never tainted. It can't get liberated because it's always free. It was never bound. So in that way, the thinking process of this mana, Buddha, Hamkara, Chaitani complex needs to change. Just as like you found out you were not the body at one time, I hope, if you're one of those kinds of minds that knows that the spirit cannot be matter, cannot be energy, and cannot be thought. If you know that, then you begin to retire from the idea that I'm a body. And then after that, I'm a body-mind mechanism. So then one began to distance oneself from ideas like evolution and birth and death being real, and began to entertain these great non-dual truths that I'm a birthless, deathless Atman. So if you hear that at one point in your life, then the point of this second class and all three classes we're in is you want to grab onto that and remain constant to it. Alas, to the Supreme Brahman, I was never attached. So now that you've heard about the Atman and its oneness with Brahman, that is your true nature and its oneness, like wave in an ocean, like clay in a pot, see, like gold in a ring, you're the same as that Brahman. It's just that you have these five coverings over. One's called body, one's called energy, one's called mind, one's called ego, knowledge, and one's called ego. Those are called the five sheaths of Vedanta. So that's the changing outer Atman, if you want to be kind to it. It's the Saguna Brahman. It's the Brahman that changes. But the Brahman that doesn't change is getting covered over by the covering power of Vijamaya. So when this happens to people, then they lose sight of the path. And then they lose sight of the path. They're not born again in the next lifetime with the remembrance of their past lifetimes, their past gurus, and their past practices. That's a good karma that you want to keep hold of. The Upanishad says to the man who's about ready to pass from the body, remember your good karmas, remember your good acts, because when you're about to pass from the body, you have a remembrance of all the bad things you did from running back at you, the devilish things. There's the devil to pay, as they say. So the practitioner has long ago done away with devilish things and the idea of a devil itself, and has grabbed onto this positive teachings called Jnanam, or Dharma, if you want, in Buddhism. Oh, and in that way, they keep their mind focused on that teaching, and that comes back to them at the end. Remember, was it Lord Bharata, who had a deer that died, loved his pet deer, and so he thought about that deer when he was passing away. He became a deer in his next lifetime. So they have stories in the Itihasa of India, these story-like scriptures that are not the revealed scriptures, of course, but they're nonetheless very good to look at, tantras, Puranas, and so forth. And they give some great illustrations like that. What you think about at the time of your death, that you might become. So what they're not saying there is, what did you think about all your life before your death? So if you kept your mind on the feet of Divine Mother, for instance, then she will save you. Pahimam, they say, Pahimam, Mother, please save me. There's a verse I can sing to you like that. So this is how the great souls even think about the passage of time leading to the illusion of death. They would never say the reality of time and a real death. They know that that's just a dream they're having, people are having. So some of this explains then how people become inconstant. That is, they don't keep up their original intentions. I met a guru, he gave me a method, I started to practice, I got disillusioned and I gave it up. So so I'm a musician, you see, and people would, I played professionally and so forth. So people would come up to me late in my life and say, "Oh, I used to play that instrument. I only kept it up for a few years." So I was thinking that's sort of the same as spiritual life. Oh, I met a guru. I got a mantra even. I practiced for a year or two, but then I gave it up. And it's just a 2-year part of my 100-year lifespan, if you will. And so this constancy then takes on a real important place in our practice, because this will, as the Mother Scripture told me the other day when I caught it, 1,000 pages of it, 18,000 verses by Vedavyas. I was looking through some of them, so there it was right there. May they have the recollection of their past lifetimes. So that's not just Sri Krishna in the Gita talking about past lives happening. This is in other scriptures too, is that it's one of the great boons of India is that you remember your past lifetimes. And so that's not known in present time, ironically called the Kali Yuga, age of darkness, because Kali also means darkness. So it's not known here in the West, in the Kali Yuga, that there are any such thing even as past lifetimes. People don't take reincarnation seriously. But in India, it's been accepted from time on of mind that people are on this wheel of birth and death, and they're coming back again and again. Hopefully they're doing that, annulling their karmas each time they come back, not engaging in negative actions, but engaging in good actions, like the Buddhists say, punya and papa, right? Well, you may not be a great practitioner and so advanced and everything, but you can do one thing. You can just stop doing negative actions, and then stop having negative thoughts. Abhyasam vairagyam tan narudaha. So maybe narudaha means to destroy. If you put together this constant practice with detachment from things unreal, that practice kept constant will destroy the negativities of your mind. That's called klista vrittis in yoga. I have negative vibrations in my mind, you see. So how do I get rid of them? People say. If you practice yoga, then that's what you do. You detach from things that aren't real, and you keep a constant practice in that atmosphere of detachment until your mind levels out. It's the same in meditation. The Buddhists tell you, watch your mind. There's a lot of clouds passing. And you watch it long enough, all of a sudden there's clear sky. It's the same over years of practice, that there's ups and downs. There's the cycles of the 3 gunas, tamas, rajas, and sattvam, always going in cycles. There's negative karmas servicing. There's auspicious times coming to you. There's challenges, there's victories, there are all sorts of things passing over the span of a lifetime. And you're to remain constant in your practice throughout all of that. All of that is changing phenomena, but the fact that I am Atma Brahma is the truth. Brahman Satya, Jagad Mithya, is one of the greatest sayings in Vedanta. Brahman Satya, Brahman is true. Jagat Mithya means the world is false. They don't pull any punches or have any bones with that. There's just no way about it that anything changing can be Brahman. Brahman is the changeless. That is immutable substance, is consciousness itself. And you will find that out if you have samadhi, when everything goes away, like it did for you last night in deep sleep. You were in a state of formlessness, but you still existed, didn't you? Because you came back again. So what is that remains after waking and dreaming stops? The rishis ask. everything went away last night at some point. I didn't know my ego. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know the world. I didn't have any relatives. I didn't have any loved ones. I didn't even have any dharma or teachings. Everything went formless on me, and I was helpless. But I was also very happy there in formlessness. So how can I get that constant, that feeling of being above and beyond everything changing and become constant? By practicing constancy, which is what we're talking about here in these three classes. But there's also this, that people fall out of the path. That's because, according to some of the teachings, the soul has a misapprehension about nature. Souls mistake nature as a separate entity, desires to possess, they desire to possess it and unite with it. One with nature was a saying back when I was in my teens and 20s, and I never bought it. Would want to be one with nature when decay and destruction and death are going on in nature. I found out decay and destruction and death were not going on in me. They were going on in nature. They were only going on in me if my thoughts were negative. But if my thoughts were cleared out and positive, then those things returned to nature and left me alone. And I became ahimsa, nonviolent. And I didn't go to war. And I didn't commit violent acts. I didn't have violent thoughts. And I decided the peaceful way was the way I wanted to go at 20 years of age, which is a big thing in a country like America. So never wanted to unite with nature because that's where death and destruction were taking place. And we know that mind is a part of nature. The brain, right, is also produced in the body. So therefore, what's in the mind, these thoughts in the mind are also part of nature. So everything happens in nature. It doesn't happen in your Atman. That's how Krishna explains it in the Gita. So then you're going to have to take a look at occurrences, happenings, events, phenomena, however you want to call that, and detach from it. I'm not that. I am the observer of everything, peaceful, calm. I'm sure the depths of the ocean observes its waves from time to time and just remains deep, like deep sleep again. I'm about to go back to dream, then I'm going to go back to waking, but then I'll return to dreams, to deep sleep again tonight. See, so this is a cycle that's going on in us. But beyond deep sleep, they call it Turiya. Turiya is the fourth state. It's equivalent to samadhi. And there, waking dreaming does not take place, and the seeds in deep sleep are not watered. One of the things people don't know about deep sleep is this is where nature has its origin, in deep sleep. And people water those seeds as they come into the body. And then as they go back into sleep, they take the object away. The object in the waking state goes to the object in the dream state. Object in the dream state dissolves back to the seed in deep sleep. And then in Turiya, it gets burnt. It doesn't germinate again. And so then I'm not projecting things out of the mind anymore. Then I can be a jivan mukta, as my teacher used to say, Swami Sheshanandaji Maharaj. And be a jivan mukta, a living liberated soul. That's why I chanted today. Is basically when mental impurities disappear, then the seer sees it everywhere, even here in this very world, in this very body. That's a jivan mukta. It doesn't have to go beyond the body to get free and be living free right here in this very body. Say the Upanishads. Loses the sense of higher self via misidentification with nature. So we had a bucket list for deep things to think about. Here's a bucket list for people falling into ignorance. They falsely perceive themselves as changing entity, but they're changeless behind. They accept birth and death as real attributes. These transmigrating souls, we're calling them. Not the free souls. The soul gets content with happiness and suffering then, and it imagines its birth and death in nature repeatedly. And it dreams them. You dream your birth, you dream your death. But you're not the dream, you're the dreamer, they say. Ram Prasad says that in his songs. Not the dream, I'm not the dream, I'm the dreamer. A man has come to me from a land that never sleeps. Now all my dreams have been turned into radiant meditations, he says. I learned this all-embracing mother path way from an adept who lives in a land that never sleeps. I can no longer practice formal meditation at the hours of dusk and dawn because the sun of her wisdom never rises and sets. I feel like I have been awake for aeons, coming out of my memory, some of Ram Prasad's songs. See, I feel like I've been awake, yogic insomnia. I have. See, I feel like I've been awake for constant eons. So this is the feeling, more than a feeling, of course, but this is how the feeling gets conveyed of how a soul awakens from the waking state, awakens from the dreaming state, and awakens from deep sleep, and becomes a jivan mukta. And realize that all others are then imagining their birth and death. They're also free. They just don't know it yet. So the only work for them to do in the world is to try and awaken souls to that. Sri Krishna says that at the end of the Gita too. They do me the greatest service. We're trying to give this gyanam, this wisdom, to others. But here's the truth of it. See, about nature and the soul. Nature is separate from the soul only in consistency, not in locale. That means the soul is not made of matter. Matter, that's the consistency of nature, right? Earth, air, fire, water, ether. The soul doesn't have that consistency. It consists only of consciousness. So this is insentient, this is sentient, you see. This is unreal, this is real, this is dreamlike, this is reality. That's called discrimination between the real and the unreal. Viveka, what Swami Vivekananda named himself after. So locale, though, is different. Nature, you're never in nature. Nature's in you, see, Swami Vivekananda said. So all of earth, air, fire, water, and ether, tasting, touching, hearing, smelling, seeing, the 5 subtle elements, the tanmatras are called, the 5 pranas that flow. All of these things are back inside of the mental complex, which is inside of you, which is overseen by the Atman, which is one with Brahman. O Manam, Mano Nabudhi, Sharira, Tanmatram, Bhutani, Nabuddha Panchakam, that's called. Shankara says, those ones who practice this blissful dissolution, they withdraw the world into the senses, and the senses into the mind into the intellect into the ego, and the ego into the witness, Sakshi. And then they put the witness into the Atman. So it's all a detachment over periods of time, being constant in it. Every time the mind goes out, you draw it back. It's like the tortoise won't let its limbs out until the dogs leave. You see, the wolves draws them in, waits, sticks one out, gets nipped. So this is the dissolution practice that great souls are doing all the time. They're discriminating constantly about the changing vicissitudes of nature. So if we can make that distinction, the soul and nature don't have the same consistency. Energy, matter, energy, and thought are all a part of nature. If you include the brain, thinking mind in that rendering. But you look at consciousness and those are all gone. It's pure, indivisible, birthless, deathless, vibrationless consciousness. That's why the word is important. In the beginning was the word was with God, the word was God. If you think about the word, then that's the primal vibration. Shabda Brahman, I call that. God is vibration. And that's the medium, the matrix between nature and the soul. So that's why John went into a cave after Jesus died and meditated on the word to the end of his life. Because Jesus had told him about the origins of everything back in the world and the word. But church fathers didn't understand that about the word. They thought that it meant beginnings, middles, and ends. In the beginning was the word was with God, the word was God. He wasn't talking about anything having a beginning, because he knew everything had a cycle, and all cycles were in Maya. He knew Brahman was transcendent of all that. So Krishna makes it clear in the Gita then. Oh, Arjuna, there are no beginnings, middles, and ends to anything, including time. Everything is eternal. Everything is eternal. Now you have to ask yourself, do I want to stay on the wheel eternally, or do I want to get off? See, I want to get off of the wheel and see what it's like to be free, even beyond the word, which vibrates and produces worlds. Brahmandas, they're called. See, thousands of Brahmandas being created. I want to see what it's like to be above the creative urge of Lord Brahma and beyond the preservation of Lord Vishnu, and what happens after Shiva destroys everything. See, and then I'll see Mother Kali, see, the Divine Mother and her Trinity. She's beyond all of this. She will give me that highest, deepest view. But in locale, then, all of nature, you're not in nature, nature's in you, is how Vivekananda put that. So all of this projecting power is in you. Earth, air, fire, water, ether, five senses, all of that is within the power of Shakti, which is in you. So also being a projection of combined thought power of the Mahat and the Antakarana, nature is an expression of Brahman. Yeah, excuse us here where we go a little tantric on this instead of Vedic. So we're starting to look at the perspective of the Tantra and Samkhya Yoga, it's called, when we talk about the great mind, Mahat, which is all minds are a collective of that great mind, Mahat, which you could say again is consummate with the Trinity. And then there's the Antakarana, the fourfold mind of each individual person. So you've got cosmic mind, you've got collective mind, and you've got individual mind. That's all one mind. So this is, again, a part of the dissolution process. You dissolve your individual mind back to the collective, back to the cosmic, and then you go beyond the cosmic. It happens every night to you. You see, when you're dreaming here, you're amidst all the individual minds, aren't you? When you're waking. Then when you dream, you're with the collective mind. You feel everyone. You see, it's like a big billions of souls in the collective mind, dreaming, all dreaming, mass collective mental dreaming is going on, I like to call it. And then finally, you go beyond the collective mind and you're with the Mahat, you're with the cosmic mind, back to the demiurge, back to the first primordial soul. There's Ishvara. There's your chosen ideal. And there's God with form in the highest rendering that the human mind can comprehend. And as that happens, you see all of nature gets drawn back to seeds, which are in the great mind. And you're borrowing those seeds. Also appearing in some form at all levels of vibratory existence, nature is both the manifestation of primal substance and the facilitator of the relationship between matter and consciousness with form. So the Upanishads say, Adihi sa samyoga namitta hetu Paras Trikalada Kalapidrista, Tam Vishvarupam Bhavamuta Mijam, Devam Svachitastam Upashapurvam. So meditate upon the Lord as thine own self in your heart. Upanishads tell you. Beautiful, huh? Meditate on the Lord as thine own self in your heart, not as some other self ailing to me up in the sky. Meditate upon yourself as the Lord seated in your heart, the Antaryami, who is the primeval cause of the relationship between consciousness and matter. So this is Saitashvatara Upanishad thousands and thousands of years before Christ. See? So you can see how they were thinking in terms, those peoples of India, Bharat, the land of the Divine Mother's children, how they were thinking about this Atman being at the core of all beings. And how when you come out of the Atman and take embodiment and you transmigrate through the different realms, you start to play in the fields of the Lord, you're at risk of forgetting your abode. You see, you must go back to the abode of the mother every night in meditation. When I sleep and when I meditate, always have to recall my true abode, and make sure that I don't forget my true nature. Divine remembrance. Smriti Rupena Yad Krishnamitat Vyapyastajagat. She's Smriti, she's the memory in all beings. Divine memory. Not forgetfulness, that's ignorance, that's alien. The divine memory, Smriti Rupena Ya Krishnamitat. Rupena, she's the very form, Rupa, of memory. See? So memory is extremely important. Recollection of who you are, where you've come from, what lifetimes you had, where your source is, and where your origin is. Nevertheless, that's this matrix that brings together consciousness and matter. So this is why if people follow the rules of Adidaiva Vidya, it's called in India, the divine wisdom, then they can come out, take a form, and remove and return back to the source. Sri Ramakrishna used to say that some souls have the ability, they're called Ishvara Kurtis, some souls have the ability to dissolve their mind and then bring it back out of immersion. So they can immerse themselves into the highest consciousness of Brahman. And then they can congeal their mind back again and bring back a little trace of ego and so forth. And this is how they, like the followers of Lord Shiva, come back to earth and help people. So transmigrating soul, this is a fascination that comes upon it. I'm calling it here. It's Maha Manomaya, they call it in India. It's this great mind falling into the sleep of unawareness. It's not aware of itself as the truth of existence. These three great beings are the truth of life and existence. They call that Sri Ramakrishna, Holy Mother, Sri Sharda Devi, and Swami Vivekananda. Well, what does the father of yoga say about it then to conclude this chart? Even knowledgeable beings, what to speak of others, cling to life and fear death. But through detached observation of the union of the two principles of nature and soul comes recognition of their difference. Ignorance is the result of this union. With the loosing of this ignorance in the mind comes its end. And becoming fully dispossessed of it, the soul realizes its complete independence. Have you got a Sanskrit word for me for that complete independence? Vaivaya. Yeah. Vaivaya means isolation from nature. Not a popular concept in today's world, but according to the father of yoga, that's where everything's heading for penultimately. That if you're attached to nature in any way, that this cycle of birth and death this fascination with transmigration is going to pull the soul again and again into embodiment. And if it enters embodiment in knowledge of its true self, that's entirely different than being pulled into cycles of birth and death and ignorance. So that's something to be pointed out. So I think that the beautiful, beautiful sutras of Father of Yoga there, he says, detached observation of the union of these two principles, how nature and soul come together and commingle, has to be observed. So there's nature and there's the soul, right? So do they mix? Seem to, for about 40 seconds. We teach this to the children using this item. But you see, if you watch for a while, if you're constant in your observation, then you'll see how the soul and nature never mix. They're different in consistency, so they can't mix, see. But they are, nonetheless, they do have a relationship with one another. It's not that either one of them is non-existent. They both exist, but there's a higher existence and there's a lower existence. There's change and there's changelessness. There's non-duality and there's duality. What there isn't is mithya. The unreal never is. The real never ceases to be. The truth about both of these has been seen by the seers. What is that? Na asat vidyate bhavo na bhavo vidyate sataha. The sat, the asat, not truth. What's not true never exists. We just think it does. So we have to discriminate that out from the truth and deny it, reject it, renounce it, detach from it. See, then we can see what the beauty of the truth. Only when the mixture, the apparent mixture, has been done away with. That's called viveka. And after viveka is vairagya. You see the difference, as he's saying here. But through detached observation of the union of the two principles of nature and soul comes recognition of their difference. As soon as the soul sees that, they're not a human being anymore. Or you might say they're a true human being. They're what human being was supposed to be all along. Noble, pure, full of wisdom, full of love, full of compassion, like Buddha. See, that all of a sudden that's an entirely different cut of consciousness there than people who are unaware of the difference between matter and consciousness, or maybe even so much attached to matter that they think they are matter. They think they are the body, would be the first unnoble truth. You've heard of the Four Noble Truths? There's about 16 unnoble truths in Tantra I can give you. The first one is they think they're the body. That's a very unnoble truth. Maybe I'll make a chart of that and show it to us later. So beautiful, huh, about Patanjali, how deep the Father of Yoga goes into, and this is Raja Yoga. This isn't like Hatha Yoga or anything else. This is the real thing, the eight-limbed. And there's 4 padas, each with many sutras in them, in the Yoga Sutras, been commented on by dozens and dozens of astute souls, including the father of Vedanta, Vedavyas, commented on Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. Shankara commented on Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. I mean, great non-dualist. So you can see how powerful yoga is when it's seen in its original state. Let's move over then to this, what I just mentioned, and we won't take a long time with this, but you might say in this chart here, if I get beyond the idea that I'm a transmigrating soul and I begin to realize that I'm pure conscious awareness, that I'm Buddha nature, that I'm the Atman, see, and that Atman and Brahman are one thing. Sometimes they appear as Brahman and Shakti, like a snake in its wriggling power, Sri Ramakrishna said. Snake's still, and all of a sudden it moves. So there's the Lord and it's Shakti. That's supreme reality and its dynamic power in one thing, you see. So it'll appear differently. So as long as I recognize this, first of all, that the unreal is not true, that the real is only true, but then reality also has a dimension of itself called dynamism. That's not Maya anymore. That's sportive play called Leela, the Tantrists say. Yes, so there's a difference between that, but that's not going to happen to the soul until they attain Koivalya. So there's a like Tibetan Buddhists, if you're dying, let's say, then the Rinpoche comes to your bedside and you start to leave the body, then they'll guide you through these bardos, these processes. See, oh, right now I'm very shaky and everything, because I'm giving up earth. Now I'm thirsty, I'm giving up water. This is as you're dying, you see. And now I'm hot and unhappy and sweaty. It's because I'm giving up fire, and so forth and so on. So it's not really all that esoteric. It's just a really beautiful art that's far beyond what the West thinks about hospice and things like that, dying at a person's bedside and all that. This is like, you're not the body, so why are you so concerned with its existence? Give it up. You never were that. But people who thought they were the body for not just one lifetime, but many lifetimes, they're not gonna be able to do that. They'll just go back into ignorance and be born again out of ignorance. That's called Maya or samsara. And people get on cycles of that with their ancestors. That's just all easy to figure for somebody who's learned the Dharma, let's see. But the real important thing is that where is that soul headed? Can it transcend everything and go into the Buddha light? See the light in the distance within you? Try and absorb yourself in that, like a hailstone in an ocean, Shankara says. Get a look at that as you pass, before you die. You've got 7 days to do that. After that, you've got 14 days to do that. After that, you have 21 days. After 21 days, if you haven't done that, then it's back to the womb of matter, you see, and you're born again. And the first mantra is, as you're being spanked on the butt, hanging upside down. At least that's the way it used to be when I was a baby. So all of this gets one beyond nature, right? So Koivalya is that word that the father of Samkhya Yoga coined for us, pulled out of the Sanskrit language, the Deva Bhashya, the language of the gods, and put it for us and say, consider this, that there has to be an isolation from all of nature for the soul to get free. And of course, we have to say in the same breath, there are living liberated souls who know they're not nature. They get into the body, they know they're not the body, and they can move in and out of the body in pure conscious awareness without any attachment. They can give up the body, Krishna says in the Gita, like a child outgrowing clothes and putting on new ones as he grows up. So as the soul grows up and gets further evolved, then bodies come off and they go back on. And that's because at one time they had already attained Koivalya. So the way that Father of Yoga talks about this gaining of isolation from nature is like this. Well, first the Father of Vedanta says, through union of the two principles of nature and soul comes the observation of their fundamental difference, resulting in realization of one's true essence. So that's what's happened now. The soul has become in knowledge of its difference from nature, completely different from nature. We're calling that inconsistency, right, in the other chart. So it sounds almost like what Patanjali, the father of yoga, is saying down here, the father of Vedanta is saying up here, because when you get into union with nature, then you realize your true essence is different. For one thing, your true essence doesn't change. It doesn't transform. It doesn't decay. It doesn't get born. It doesn't grow like nature grows. And it doesn't die like nature. So when you see the soul, you become absolutely 100% assured that you're not anything that changes and and dies, you're a candidate for Koivalya at that time. And you're free of the loop of birth and death at that time. You won't come back as a deer or something like that. You see, it's not possible for that to happen. It's the soul's realized their true nature. What he's calling here their essence, their swarupa. This process takes place when the soul abandons its relationship with matter, mixes itself no more with nature. This is called Koivalya. Final isolation from the endless stream of phenomena caused by the mind and the intellect, manas and buddhi. Well, here we are. I was talking about individual, collective, and universal mind, right? Cosmic mind. So this is an inward ascension, we like to call it, that the soul places itself in higher reaches of the mind, which vibrate less with negativity and more with positivity, and then finally get beyond even positive and negative to a non-dual state, which is non-vibration. Yoga, chitta, vritti, nirodha. There's a famous sutra in Patanjali's. Yoga, union with God, really is the cessation of vibrations of the mind. That has to be cessation of the vibration of Lord Brahma's mind to cosmic mind, the Trinity. You have to go beyond the vibration of Lord Brahma's mind. That would be Lord Brahma has all the seeds for nature in its mind, and you want to transcend Lord Brahma. Oh, I see. Your worlds are so beautiful, Lord Brahma. Tell me how to get beyond them. You see, there's a sloka in the Upanishads where the soul finds Lord Brahma back inside himself and asks Lord Brahma, can I go beyond you? I've had my bath. I'm clean. I don't want to return to the realms of name and form anymore. I'm done with them. Lord Brahma sees that as a realized soul and says, you may pass. And the soul merges like a hailstone into the ocean at that point, goes beyond Brahmaloka. That's Satya Loka, see, and goes to Sarvaloka, the culmination of all realms, and is then free. And so Father of Yoga is calling this Koivalya. First, you're going to get the wisdom transmission. Second, you're going to have to get clarity around it. It's called Kyati. Next, a whole rain cloud of virtues come into you. Dharma Mega, it's called. Then destruction of all blemishes. Then dispassion towards the gunas. That is, gunas mean slothfulness, restlessness, and balance, right? Basically. So now my mind has gotten tired of going back between slothfulness and restlessness, but like work and laziness, you see. Now it achieved balance. But now I'm so attached to balance, but Rajas and Tamas are threatening my balance. See, so I really have to get beyond that desire for balance too. So I'm going to have to build a real dispassion for all three gunas of nature, because that's how nature gets into the mind, through the gunas. Those three modes of nature, they're called. You've probably heard the teaching of the gunas before. After the gunas are transcended, that's called Trigunatita. There's this great Swami of the Ramakrishna order, a direct disciple of the great master, who's called Swami Trigunatitananda. So he took that very seriously. Then you get this destruction of karmas and obstacles. That's when knowledge is at its purest. And at that point, then non-dual samadhi comes along. That would be called nirvana in Buddhism. It'll be called nirvikalpa in Vedanta. And here in yoga, it's called asampragyata. No seeds left anymore. Everything below had seeds, like seeds for gunas, and seeds for virtues, seeds for knowledge. Those got all burnt. And because seeds give rise to nature, you might have noticed even here. So you burned all the seeds, and nature couldn't germinate anymore. Because nature starts out as a thought and turns into an object later. It's a beautiful way in which Holy Mother put it. All objects are just thought made manifest. So she tried to put it very simply for people of this day and age in India there when she was talking to them. So that's here too. And Patanjali says, when all the vrittis are brought under control, vrittis are vibrations, and subjected to nirodha, then sampragyata, wisdom samadhi, ensues, followed by kaivalya, and then asampragyata. So that's why you get knowledge first. Get the transmission of wisdom, become very certain that this wisdom is the highest truth, and it can take you to a state of complete liberation. But first of all, it's going to have these 7 stages of kaivalya. This is how Patanjali saw his students and people of the day getting free when he gave them the wisdom transmission from the Yoga Sutras. And then he saw a few of them get free, and he saw they went through these steps. What are those stages? And he noted them down for us. What was he, about 140 AD, they say, father of yoga. And Vedavyas came some hundreds of years later. That's why he's commenting here on the Yoga Sutras. Very beautiful for a philosopher. This is very beautiful stuff. And so Father of Yoga was watching people practice the yoga that he himself had been born again and again through lifetimes to disseminate to people. And here was a very recent age for India, 140 AD. That's very recent for the seers of India. Now we're looking towards people like Ramana Maharshi and others being the most modern rishis, so forth. So quickly through that. In Footfalls, you can get this chart if you want and read the quotes I put for each one of these. But we want to move on in the second class to look at some of the causes for inconstancy. Why aren't we getting spiritual success from our practices? When I read that in the Viveka Chudamani of Shankara, then I thought maybe it's going to be very good to have a chart that kind of follows Shankara's way of thinking and gives us not only the causes for the lack of spiritual success, but the solutions for spiritual success, and then the signs of spiritual success. So that's what this chart is all about. All in connection with this effort we're making to try and remain constant in our practice. Keep it up, keep it up. Because Shankar says there at the top, spiritual success depends on qualification. Thus, the seeker should take to study and reasoning after approaching the Guru, who must be among the best of knowers of Brahman. Brahmavittama, that's called. And also an ocean of mercy. So these great souls that we go to and lend an ear to the teachings, like the wisdom transmission we were talking about. And then that's going to inspire us to keep up the pace of spiritual life and not give up at the end. Keep the constancy going. So you can see here, they're listed here, 5 different causes for spiritual success, according to Shankara. The first is attachment to objects and pleasures. So I selected a quote from Sri Ramakrishna. He said, once the sweet meat has gone down the throat, one can hardly remember what it tasted like. So he's talking about, of course, more than just tastes, but for the mind, once these objects and pleasures have been owned, experienced, maybe have gotten old, like the object can be destroyed, the object can be, you become bored with the object, it can get stolen, it can decay, not work anymore. There's like a whole list in the scriptures of both Vedanta and Buddhism of why an object should be renounced. And they all make sense. They're all very good. But people don't think about that. They just continue to have their experience with the object. And so Sri Ramakrishna is putting in his own 2 cents, as you were. It's just like a sweetmeat down the throat. You just have a taste of it for a few seconds, it's gone, then you don't even remember what it tasted like anymore. There's just some residue of enjoyment left over. And so you get attached to having that again and again. So we're back there to this, aren't we? What attracts people to transmigration, to keep coming back to the body, the senses, and the pleasures of the objects. So that's one of the causes for lack of spiritual success. In fact, Shankara even sings about that in some of his stotrams. Punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam, punarapi janani jatare shayanam, samsare bahudishkare, kripaya pari mari murare, bhaja govindam, bhaja govindam, bhaja govindam mudamate, samprapte sanihite kale, nahi nahi rakshati dukarim karane. Many verses like that come out of Shankara. And the English for it says, repeated births, repeated deaths, repeated occupation of various wombs. This transmigratory process is difficult indeed to cross. Therefore, this one cries, save me, to the august destroyer of demons. Pahimam, Pahiman, I was saying. So Shankara is, of course, a fully realized soul. So he's singing this for others who have come to him and save me from all of this. So, this transmigration process has been looked in. What was Shankara about? 700 AD. So that's like 550 years after Father of Yoga, who was 550 years after Buddha, Christ and Buddha. So these souls are coming, peppered throughout even recent history, because that's not very long a time for India, who looks at time a lot differently, as we just said. But you'll see that that's the case with these great souls who want to impress upon us to be free in this lifetime, not to let attachments and obsessions and various things get to us. It's ignoble to let that happen to us. Must be a noble soul. Holy Mother said, I gave you initiation of the mantra because I thought you were a noble soul. Please do not betray me, she said. In the West, they see people betraying path, guru, and mantra all the time. Find a good method, path, guru, stick to it, constancy, until you get enlightened. Number 2 here, and these are causes for why we're not getting spiritual success, is the delusion concerning the true nature of Brahman, the self, and the world. So this is what we've been talking about up to this point, really. I've mentioned it so many times. The last to the Supreme Brahman, I'm not attached, or the unreal never exists, the real never ceases. So in my own lifetime and how long decades I've been presenting the Dharma to people, and what I've seen happen in the West over those 50 or so years of my 5-year-old life is that the ones that succeed in continuing on their spiritual path have heard about discrimination, viveka, and they've accepted it. Those that have not succeeded and keep falling down have not found discrimination yet. And the first thing you hear in Vedanta is viveka vairagya. Well, maybe after vivarta. So they're like V words that are very important. See, peace, man. V words. The first one you hear in Vedanta is vivarta. What's that mean? There's a false superposition over God here. Every form is veiling formless reality. So all forms are Maya. That's Vedanta 101. See? That's Buddhism 101. It's all empty is, 102. So basically 101 is that it's Brahman is here in everything. Why can't I see it? It's because the object is standing in the way and I'm attached to the object. So back to number one here, why I can't make any success. I'm still obsessed with objects and pleasure in nature. So I give these up point blank. I renounce them right now. Whether I'm monk or householder, I have to renounce them to get free, get koivalya even, which is penultimate freedom. So Sri Ramakrishna was looking at this in his devotees, and he says this, in my devotees, if they know who I am, who they are, and what the world is, they will be fine. So that's the nature, concerning the true nature of Brahman, the self, and the world. If they know that he's Brahman, Ishvara, avatar, they know that he's like the great master, come again, Rama, Krishna, come again, and Ramakrishna. If they know this, and then they add to that they know they're the Atman, not the body, not the mind, not objects, not the senses, and so forth and so on, discriminatory process of viveka, then they know that the world is unreal. That's it. They will be fine, he says. So he wanted to make sure that all his disciples had these three realizations. There's God in human form. Here's the Atman. There's the unreal world. Now I'm fine. I can be in the body or not. Doesn't matter now. I know the truth. And if you know the truth shall set you free. Other great souls have said the same. So Shankara sings about that too. He, in another way, I'm pulling from his Bhaja Govindam to explain some of these. He sings in this way. Yoga Ratava Bhoga Rataga Sangha Rotava Sangha Vidinaha Yasha Brahmani Ramate Chittam Nandati 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 Evam Bhaja Govindam Bhaja Govindam Bhaja Govindam Mudamate Samprapte Sanihite Kale Nahi Nahi Rakshati Dukarin Karane. Basically, that means in English, that is, in you and me, and everywhere as well, there's but one God. Do not get angry or become impatient. Perceive the self in all beings and leave off ignorance, which is the cause of all difference. Can't put it much straighter than that. See, and so you can see why, if you want to put it this way, he's a Hindu. He's also a worshiper of Shiva. He's also mainly an Advaitist, a non-dualist. So Shankara was many things, fully illumined soul. And he was a student of Gaudapada, one of the great non-dualists of all time. So you can see how he's putting this. And just how Sri Ramakrishna says, if you become aware of the true nature of Brahman, that there's just one God here, see, and you know that you are that, see, that thou art, or I and my Father are one, however you want to put that too. And then you know that the world has to, is different than you in consistency, but it's also in locale within you. That's why I put that in that chart. If you didn't know that nature was a different consistency with you, then you'd think that oil and water would mix, but it doesn't. They never mix, but they have a relationship. So this is how nature is within you. You are not in nature. If you think you're in nature, then you think you're born. You think you die. But the Atman can never be born, can never die. So, and what's that called? Kyati. Right? You got the wisdom transmission, but you had to discern about it, and you had to become clear about it, and you had to be constant in it until you realized it fully, see. And then it's a part of your very being. It leads you to Kaivalya and beyond. Number 3, and I hope we have time enough to finish at least these first causes, because then next Sunday we can look at solutions. You can watch online if you want. Finish up this chart, but we only have a certain amount of time for this. Number 3 of the causes for lack of spiritual success is a failure to awaken spiritually. Funny that Sri Ramakrishna uses that story in this regard. The boy tells his mother when he's about to go to sleep, "Oh, mother, will you please wake me up when I feel the call of nature?" And the mother says to him, "Don't worry, you'll wake up when that happens." We certainly all hope he will. So you'll wake up when that happens. So this is Sri Ramakrishna's kind of humorous way of saying, don't fail to awaken spiritually. When the guru comes to you, when the path comes to you, when the method comes to you, when the practice comes to you, and the ability to remain constant comes to you, follow it all the way. The hilt of the sword, Mother Kali's sword, follow it all the way to blessed Kaivalya and beyond. Shankara also sings about that. I selected a verse for each one of these. Rangam galitam palitam mundam dashanavidam jatam tundam vedoyati gritva dandam tadvafinamum chati tapapindam bhaja govindam bhaja govindam mudamate samprapte sanihite kale nahi nahi rakshati dukarin karane. In English, that renders as, behold how the old man moves about, his body decrepit, his gait slowed with age, his hair is grayed, his mouth is toothless, and he clings desperately to a walking stick. Still, massive desires and delusion does not leave him. We can't call Shankara the bringer of good news all the time. He's got some bite to his teachings there. But you can see the point here that basically it's that he failed to awaken spiritually. He's now old. And alas, to the Supreme Brahman, I was never attached. The mother's breast, sports, the young woman, old age. I mean, you just go through it back to this image that we had up here, that people don't take the long view of what's going to happen to them throughout their life. They're just happy in the passing moment. And we always gave that teaching before. People would tell us, well, I live in the present. And I would always say to them, that's too bad for you. I live in the eternal moment. So if there's a difference between the present is just contains the past. It contains the shaking all the time. It's like this never got unshaken, you see. It's the process all the time that consciousness is going through, and they mistake themselves for processes. Rather than processes or methods, spiritual methods are possible. You've heard of why, what, where, and when, but there's one W that's very good, who. See, be like an owl, Ramprasad says. Who am I? See? So why is cause and effect karma? You're not that. When is time? You're not that. Where is space? You're not that. See, why, when, where, what? You're not an object. You see, you're not the world. You're not nature. And so who am I? So my teacher used to say those 5 W's, but there's a H word there called how. He said, I'll get rid of these 4 and I'll keep this one. That's inquiry. That's Atmavichara to Ramana Maharshi, all the way back to Lord Vashishta. Lord Vashishta and Ramana Maharshi are bookends for Atmavichara, asking the question, who am I? So thousands of years back to Ramchandra, to the present time, up to 1950, when Ramana Maharshi, I think, was passing. They're the bookends for this practice of Atmavichara. Who am I? But sometimes what doesn't get said in there, my teacher says, is how. The method is important for Westerners, particularly in this day and age. So this is Shankar's lending us this wisdom about not falling into this illusion of old age and death. Number 4, relying for refuge in home, spouse, wealth, and offspring. In Tantra, that's called Ishanatrayam, the triple bondage. If you're a dharmic person, no problem. You raise your family in the Dharma, they raise their children in the Dharma. That's constancy, right? But how often are we finding our children following our good example in this day and age? Not usually happening, because why? Well, should we go back and go through it all again? What they're getting sucked into, they don't know about rebirth. They don't know about transmigration. They don't know about the ills of the 6 transformations: birth, growth, disease, old age, decay, and death. Don't know, don't know, don't know. See? Get that wisdom transmission from your teacher and get initiated in the path. Take up a method and follow it to the end. What can be said? I think I had even how much time do we have?
8 minutes.
Oh, goody, 8 minutes, luxury. That's so much time. Time is on our side. And so think here, yes, he sings this famous verse, which some of you even know. Kante katta kasta putra samsaro yamativa vichitra kashyam tvam kahakuta yastas statvam chintaya tadya braha bhaja govindam bhaja govindam bhaja govindam mudamate samprapte sanihite kale nahi nahi rakshati dukrin karane. Basically, that says in English, I know that one by heart. I already recited it to you. When I was young, I was attached to my mother's breast. Baby, that is. When I was a young boy, attached to sport. Young man attached to a young woman. And I put in there, because I like it, add to Shankar's verse. When I was middle-aged, I was attached to work, restlessness. And then when I was old, I was attached to anxiety, but I was never attached to the Supreme Brahman. That's that verse. Kate kanta kaste putra. It also goes on and says, who is your wife? Who is your son? Exceedingly subtle is this empirical process. Who are you and where have you come from? Oh, soul, please meditate upon this every day, deeply. See, who am I? It's again the who am I coming back. What am I not is what they're talking about there. And finally, obsession with work and activity. Basically, Ram Prasad is there, though, going back, relying for refuge on the Ashana Ram Prasad says, to hope for help from relatives and friends provides no profound solution. Don't you know that all are lost here? Except the one who can tell you the way out. See? In fact, I can remember the rest of that song. Don't you know that all are lost here? Everyone lives in pallid imitation of everyone else. I didn't have enough room to put that line on the chart, but everyone lives in pallid imitation of everyone else. So if my father was a doctor, I'll be a doctor. If my father was a lawyer, I'll be a lawyer. My mother was a spouse, housewife, I'll be a housewife. But this freedom that I had in my mind when I was young, and even when I saw nature, it reminded me of freedom. Forests, lakes, skies, mountains. I wanted to go out into them and everything. That's good. That's fine. Because it gave you that feeling of freedom until finally you'd experienced it. And then finally you wanted to realize that Kaivalya is possible for you. That, as I said, nature, you are not in nature ever. Nature is always in you. Right now, all of us sitting here are not in the world. We're in the mind. That's what teaching our founder Lexicon used to give us. You're never in the world. So you're always in the mind because it's the mind that projected the world. So all of these are vibrations. They're all thoughts from a mind. There's a great mind, there's a collective mind like our ancestors, and then there's this individual minds all thrown together in what's called Burloka, or this one world. So you contemplate on that. It's part of the wisdom transmission. The world doesn't exist. It's unreal. So I understand what he's saying. We're not in it because it doesn't exist. How can we be in it if it doesn't exist? It's a vibration of the mind, and all objects are vibrations of the mind's thoughts. So they're changing all the time. Brahman doesn't change, you see. Shall we shake it up again and see the result? Finally, and this will end our hour and a half or so together here, the final cause for lack of spiritual success, according to Shankara and the Vivekajamani, basically is obsession with work and activity. That's why I put that when I was a middle-aged man, I was attached to work. It's so prevalent nowadays. That's a quote from Vivekananda. Duty is the midday sun, whose fierce rays are burning the very vitals of humanity. So before that, he said, duty is a necessary evil at first. Later on, it becomes a midday sun that burns the very vitals of humanity. So he gives it only enough credence or enough worth, that you start out doing your duty to society and raising your family and doing all that's called dharma. But in the end, it's burning the very vitals of humanity. They all get caught in the loop of work, duty, karma, it's called, karmashaya, the field of karma. And before they know it, they're hooked into more action and more effects. Cause and effect gets them. So we'll end there and start with solutions for lack of spiritual success. I don't know if I had it'd be a good way to end if I had this Shankara's saying for that. Dinayaminyal Sayam Prataha Shishavashantal Punayataha Kala Kridati Kachati Enas Tadapi Namun Chati Ashavayahu Bhaja Govindam Bhaja Govindam Bhaja Govindam Mujamate Samprapte Sanihite Kale Nahi Nahi Rakshati Dukkarin Karine Bhaja Govinda. Om Jananim Sharadam Devim Ramakrishnam Jagadgurum Pado Padme Chaye Shrita Pranamami Muhur Muhur. O Ramakrishna, teacher of all, O Sharada, goddess divine, in bosom holding those lotus feet, salutations to both, ever be of mine. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Hari Om.